Okay, so this is how we're going to make a logo, firstly as a rough copy in Designmatic, and then we're going to actually add it into Illustrator and illustrate it ourselves, so we have a vector rather than anything of questionable quality. So I'm just going to type in my company name, which is going to pretend to be Mr. Korber's Teaching, and then we are looking for an image that we like, and then we're just going to save the image so that we can use that as our file, and then we're going to trace that file in Adobe Illustrator. Okay, so the first step is to open Illustrator, create a new document, and then all you're going to do is just open the image file that you've got. We're going to be using Shay's example. If you zoom in, you can see it's a pixel art basically. So the first thing we're going to be doing is we're going to click on the shape and we're going to press Ctrl L, which will lock it in place so that then we can move the screen around with our fingers or our little pen stylus, and it won't actually move it out of the way. So basically the tools you want to be looking down the left hand side, and yours will be a little bit smaller because your version's a little bit different to mine, is we're looking for a shape tool. So we could use this to draw like a circle and it'll kind of fix it up for us, and then we're always alternating back to the selection tool, or you can just click V if you want to alternate between the two. Another good one is the curvature tool, and this is for curvy lines, not surprisingly. So I'm just using Control plus and Control minus to zoom in and zoom out. But you have to think of this tool as basically it gives you dots, or they're actually called vectors, but that's not too important to you. And you're just going to be copying along the line as best as you can. If you can't see in between it, if you look over on this left hand side here, these two boxes are the fill, and you can pick the color that it will be filling in. But if you pick from these three, this is full color, this is gradient, and this is nothing. So if you click nothing, it'll just be giving you the lines, which might be a little bit clearer. So one way to do it is to sort of rapidly tap dots. Again, this is a terrible example really, but you can rapidly put in dots to get the basic shape and make sure it connects at the end. And then that is the shape that you've made. If you want to make it a little bit thicker, which will smooth out some of your bad lines or dodgy lines like I've got here, you're changing the stroke up or down. So that's probably way too much. Something like that's not bad. And then all I'm going to do, this is our first part of the shape, I'm going to remove it over to there. So if you make a mistake, you're just going to click Ctrl Z to undo what you've done. Keeping in mind you can pinch with your fingers, but that requires you to be in the right setting, which was a little bit more annoying. So just Control plus and Control minus to zoom in and zoom out. So we're trying to use the shaper tool to draw a circle. So we've got one there, one there, one there, one there. Oops, that was not a great one, so I'll undo that. Nor was that. That's a bit better. Alright, and so then we're just either clicking V to get back to the cursor, which is what we need to draw with, and other tools. So like the curvature tool is Shift plus tilde, so the top left hand corner of your key, if you want to use that. It's best for curvy shapes, obviously. And then if you click Ctrl Z to undo, it'll take it back one dot at a time. So that's a pretty bad example I've got for you there, so we'll try a little bit harder. So we're getting our curvature a little bit better. You can see it's set the curve to a certain direction, so you might need to go bit by bit instead of all the way along. So that's our dot, and if I wanted to do this more perfectly, I'd just zoom in a lot more so you can see it a lot more easily. So that's what we'll do here to make sure we have a closed shape so we can fill it up with color. Okay, so again, not a great example, but you can see that's our shape. And then the reason we're putting it into Illustrator is because then it's a vector, which just means no matter how much you stretch it, it will retain its shape. Whereas if it's a pixel, you can see you zoom in, you zoom out. So if we were to say, as a company, need to blow up our logo and make it really large on a billboard, if we blew this up as it was, then we'd have a real problem because obviously it's obscured and it would be mostly squares and pixels for the actual person looking at it. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to Control C to make a copy of that, and then I'm going to actually right click on it, go to transform, and we're just going to go to reflect, so it's the opposite side, 90 degrees, that's what we need. So then we can put them together, and that's, you can see the start of our shape sort of taking form. Just again to go over the colors, the large square of the fill, if you click X, it'll alternate between them, but the large square is the fill color, so what fills in between the lines. and the black little outline is the outline color. So if you double click on that, we can have a pink and blue version, and you can see the benefit for this. If this was your logo, you could have different colors based on different needs of your logo, so you could change it depending on what you're focusing on. Another little trick that might be useful is the eyedropper tool. So if you have a shape and you need to just make the color the same, you can just click straight onto the eyedropper to fill in what you want it to be. So we'll say the same blue in the pink outline, it'll just copy it across. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea of how to turn what you did rather roughly in Design-O-Matic, with your little logo that you've created, and taking out the background from that and removing the pixel elements and just tracing across so that you have a range of different elements that make up the piece. One last little hotkey you could use is click on all the items holding down Shift, and you can press Control G, which will group them all together so that then when you move them they stay as one. So the underneath is our base logo. So if we move that out of the way, all of these elements remain together, so we can just drag them around together. So with that in mind, you should be able to create your own vector Adobe Illustrator logo and make it a lot easier to change the colors, change the font. The last thing you might need is font, which is this T here, and then you just type what you want. So we would type ob tech, and then if you look above, we can see the point is the size, and we can change the font up here in character, and a lot of different colors that you could use. Alright, good luck creating your own logo.